It's time for another Dice Tower review with the Game Boy Geek.
Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Today, one of us is going to be an agent. We're going to be in like this warehouse building. We're going to be backs up against the wall. We're going to be hiding from a bunch of hunters. And when it gets dicey and people get close, we're going to be throwing some smoke bombs, some grenades at them so we can get out of there in the clear. Today, we're talking about Specter Ops. This is from Plaid Games and Plaid Hat Games. It's for 2 to 5 players. It is a hidden movement deduction type game with some special abilities, some cool things. 2 to 5 players, plays in about 1 to 2 hours, maybe 1 to 90 minutes. Let's check it out. I'll show you how it's played. I'll see you on the other side. In Specter Ops, it's a one versus many or team game where one player is going to be secretly, through hidden movement, moving around the board and trying to collect one of 3 of 4 of these secret objectives. Now these secret objective locations change every game and they're quite randomized, but they're typically going to be in each of these 4 little quadrants here. In a 2 or 3 player game, the hunters are going to choose 2 of these characters here. If it's a 2 player game, they'll run both of them. If it's a 3 player game, 2 of the hunters will each run 1 of these guys. And as you can see, we have got the beast, the puppet, the gun, the prophet. They each come with their cool little miniatures and they all have some special abilities. And you can see a close-up of these miniatures here. They're very detailed and they look extremely cool. Now the single agent, or the person that's going to be moving secretly through the game, also gets to pick 1 of 4 characters, and of course they all have special abilities as well, and also cool minis. And here's a quick look at the minis for the agents, also very cool. The agent also gets to choose 3 different equipments. Now here's 6 unique ones that are generic that any character could use. They could select from any one of these. Some of them can be used more than once, some of them just once. And some of them are specific to characters. For example, the holo decoy can only be used if you had picked the Blue Jay. So this is a special equipment that they can use. Now those equipment cards and the character they chose are hidden from the hunters at the beginning of the game. Now the board is laid out like a grid, but I want you to see that these numbers have some UV coating on them. On the bottom right, you can see how it gets shiny with the light. So the board is quite dark, but you can really see all the grid lines that are on there. The agent starts in space N1, and they're going to be moving secretly on a pad of paper that I'll show you about more later. The hunters all start in the car, in this space here, and they stay off the board when they're on their car, just to show you that's where they're at. Now the agent gets to move up to 4 spaces secretly on his pad of paper here, and then all the hunters get to move in any order they like. When he starts in N1, he can move up to 4, and he can go up, down, left, right, or diagonal. So from N1, he can go 1, 2, 3, 4, because you can move diagonally here, and he could end up in Q5. So in movement 1, I would write down that I am in Q5, and I'd say, okay, hunter's turn. Now the hunters start in this vehicle, and the vehicle can move up to 10 spots per round, I guess, because the hunters are going to move back to back here. And they can only move in these big double-laned roads. They can't go down the alleyways here. They can only move in the roads. So they could, one of the guys could move this up to 10, but that's all it could move this round. Maybe he moves it like that. They can move diagonal like that. Now, one of the guys, if they want to, since it was his turn moving the vehicle, he can hop out. Maybe he hops out right there, but that stops his movement for the turn. Let's say the beast hops out. Now, the vehicle already moved 10 this round, so the other hunter can't move it. But if the agent moved 3 or more spaces, and we have somebody who's obviously still in the vehicle, they can use the motion sensor, which is pretty cool because at this point we look at this compass and we look where the car is, and the agent must say whether they're north, south, east, west, or northwest, or southwest, or southeast from the car. So we could quickly find out if they moved 3 or more spaces, if they went this way on their first turn or this way on their first turn. And if they said northeast, we know that that player ran that direction right off the bat. This game has line of sight. So if I ended my space here as the hunter, the agent will have to say either clear, meaning they can't be seen. This guy can see up, down, and left and right all the way down to barricade. So he can see all the way down this lane here, here, and he's kind of blocked there and there. So if the agent was not in any of those spots, he'd say clear, and it'd be the next hunter's turn. If he could be seen, he would place his player where he is, and if it's his first time, he would then flip over his card so they could see which character they picked that game. Then this player would be able to roll a die, and there's 1, 2, 3. It's 3 away. So if he rolls a 3 or higher, this player gets hit for 1 damage. A 1 is an always miss. If you roll a 6, you get to roll it again and add it to your roll. Another 6, add it to your roll. So sometimes you can shoot really far if you roll really well. Wow, I just rolled 2 6s in a row. And if they were hit, they would cross off a hit point. When they come to their 4th hit, they are dead and the hunter team wins. Now, line of sight works a little differently on these double-laned roads, where if you're on an actual road space, you get to see both road lanes all the way down, all the way up. Well, let's say I was clear and the agent was here in S9. On that agent's next turn, maybe they went 1, 2, 3, 4, and they ended up here. They crossed a line of sight of someone, and let's say that was the last time that they were seen by anybody. They would put this last seen marker right there, saying that that was the last time they seen. So the hunters know that the agent passed through this spot somewhere. They don't know which way they went, but they know that that's where they went. So that way the hunters can try to triangulate and figure out where is that person. Now, to complete a mission, the agent needs to be 1 away from any of the missions. Diagonally up, down, doesn't matter. Now let's say they're on Q19. On the beginning of their turn, they will flip this over, say they completed a mission, and then they will move like normal. And maybe they move up to their 4 spaces. So when something gets flipped over, the hunters know that the agent was in one of these spots, and now they're up to 4 spaces away from any of those in any direction. Unless, of course, you're the Blue Jay. Here comes some special abilities. This one can complete a mission up to 2 spaces away. So if we never saw the agent yet this whole game, and this got flipped over, if they were the Blue Jay, they could have been 2 away. So now, things can get a little bit easier for the agent to escape because they have a lot of these special abilities and special cards. And a little more detail, some special equipment cards you might use. This one you wouldn't reveal it, it'd be face down, and you can move up to 6 spaces. This can be used once per game, so this would be face down, and we would tap it or move it so that they know that we've used it, but they don't know what we did, but we moved 6 spaces. And the Blue Jays, one of their special equipments is they get to do a decoy. As long as they're 4 spaces away, they get to put the last seen token, but it wasn't really them. Cool stuff. Now, anytime you put the last seen token, you're actually also supposed to put the player as well. But in this case, if they were using that special ability, they could have been 4 spaces away. 1, 2, 3. They could have actually been here, and they put this here to make them think that's where they went, but their Blue Jay's really running away somewhere else. Some pretty cool special abilities. I'm not going to go over all the special abilities from all the characters, but the hunters have some too. For example, the beast can move 3 or fewer spaces, and then the agent has to tell them, once he uses this ability, if he's within 4 of the beast, if he's close. They also can, if they're on top of them, if they roll a 5 or higher, they do the agent 2 things of damage, because usually if you end on the agent itself, they get 1 damage automatically, and then they can also move 5 spaces, but they can't attack. So there's some special abilities that the hunters get to use. This will continue, the agent taking the turns, then all the hunters taking turns, until one of a few things happens. The agent's trying to get any 3 of the 4 completed, and then ending his movement on one of the spaces next to one of the 3 exits, trying to do that before he gets killed by 4 hit points, or until he runs out of moves all the way down to 40. And that's how the agent wins. The hunters win if they don't get out before 40, or if they get 4 hit points killed. If you're playing with 4 players, there'll be 3 people that are hunters now, so that the odds are against you. So the agent gets a little bit of balancing. They have an extra escape point. They get 2 extra hit points, so they need a total of 6 to get killed. They get to pick 5 equipment cards instead of 3. The vehicle starts further back for the hunters, and the biggest thing probably is the missions of where they are is not on the board. They're secret, and the hunters don't know where they are until one of them gets completed, and they just say, I've completed a mission. So that makes it a little bit harder. The hunters don't know exactly where the agent's going to. With 5 players, you have all those changes, and you have a trader, where these cards, where they will get assigned, the agent will give these 4 cards to the 4 hunters. One of them is secretly going to be on the agent's team. The other players won't know this. They'll be secretly working with the agent, so both the undercover agent and the agent will know who each other are. These people won't know. And the cool thing about that is, like before, if the agent ran by this person and this was the other hidden agent, they would not have to place a last seen marker to show that they were there, so it just confuses the other team. But if another hunter moves, maybe here, and then this person now has to say, yep, I'm here, they'll know that that person's the traitor and that person's the agent. And that player will now take a hidden movement sheet. They will pick one of the characters that's available. They'll take a couple equipment cards, and they act like an agent for the rest of the game, except they cannot complete missions. However, they can die if if either agent dies, like normal, gets 6, the hunters win. But to get out, 3 of the 4 missions have to get completed, and both agents need to get out. All right, well, there's Specter Ops. I'm not just going to tell you what I think about this game as it stands alone. Deduction games are my favorite types of games, and hidden movement games are my favorite deduction games. It is my favorite niche of game in the world. So I'm going to give it a little bit of time just seeing how does this game fit into this genre? What does it improve upon? Is it better than all the rest? How is it different from the rest? You know, this genre really started as a household name with Scotland Yard, right? I mean, it won the Spiel des Jahres back in the early 80s. It really put hidden movement on the map. It was a gateway game for a lot of people growing up, I know. Now that game had, had some sequels I'll talk about in just a moment, but there was actually a mass market game that made a pretty big stink for the hidden movement games. This is Clue Great Museum Caper. These are really hard to find. It came out like in the 90s. It's probably one of my favorite mass market games ever produced. You had some goals, you were getting some paintings. Unlike Scotland Yard, which I think that it did what it did. It was great. It was necessary for the industry to get that hidden movement thing on the map. But all in all, I think it's been replaced because so many other games have given you goals to do when you're the hidden role person, as opposed to in Scotland, you're kind of just like roaming around and you have nothing really to do but just to stay out of people's harm's way, and it kind of gets a little boring because you're just like avoiding people as opposed to doing a goal. Where Museum Caper, when this came out, wow, now I got a goal, I got to go out, I got to get a certain amount of paintings stolen, and I got to get out alive, and that was really cool for a mass market game. Now, Scotland Yard did have a sequel later on called New York Chase. It put it in New York. The grid lines are a lot more straight than the London and Scotland Yard. There was a couple things you could do with barricades and helicopters, but it didn't really change it a whole lot. But then Mr. X came out. It was a trilogy. This is the 3rd game in the Scotland Yard series. This is one of my favorite hidden movement games because it actually gave you something to do. You had to go get a goal. It felt like Scotland Yard, but it gave you a goal. And this is a really good one too. And it was actually designed by the same people that later on did Letters from Whitechapel, which is a very well-known hidden movement game. Actually, it's my favorite. And so that was Mr. X is like a prequel to this. It's basically one night of this. So if I want to get hidden movement, I want it in like 30 to 45 minutes max, Mr. X is it. Otherwise, Whitechapel's my favorite. There were some other ones. There was Nuns on the Run that came out in like 2010, which flipped it on its head. You had multiple players playing as the hidden role and one person being the scene. It's a great concept. I wanted to love it, but unfortunately, the fiddliness of the line of sight and how many squares you could see ahead and the differences and asking every person, could you see you every time you moved one square? Places on board you could see, some you couldn't. The fiddly rules killed that game, but it was a great concept and a great try. And I know Fury of Draculas are really popular and that a lot of people love. I personally like my deduction games to be a lot more straightforward with deduction, not as much combat, not as much resource management, so that one's not one of my favorites, but I know a lot of people love that. So with all that said, where does Specter Ops fit in all these hidden movement games, the niche within the niche? First of all, Emerson, the designer of this game from Nazca Games. If you haven't heard of him before, you should. He designed a very easy light card game called Tricks and Treats. It's a great little game, a bluffing game. It's fun. You play with the advanced variants. It's a good family game. His first design, and it was impressive. Then last year he came out with Volt Robot Arena, a good programming game. So he's coming up the masses. Now he's swinging for the fences, and his games just get better and better. If you don't have his other games, check them out. Also, he is one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. If Emerson from Nazca Games and Rodney Smith from Watch It Play had a nice off, I think it would be a draw. So on to the game. How does it feel? Where do I slot this? It's an excellent, excellent game. I love it. It's really good. It does everything a hidden movement game should do. When you're on the side of the hidden person, it is super tense. You're sweating bullets. You're listening to those people strategize about where they're going and where they think you are, and you have total paranoia of, they know where I am, maybe they do, maybe they don't. Total paranoia. It does that great. The hidden movement stuff's awesome. For the hunters, same thing. I think, so here's what it does differently, I think, is those special abilities and all those different equipment cards really makes this different from a lot of the other games. I think for a gamer, if you were to say which hidden movement game should I try, if you're a gamer, you like special abilities, you like cool themes, I think this is probably going to be the go-to hidden movement game that you'd go to. Taking the rolls is cool. It plays well with 2 and 3, awesome. Plays good with 4. They've balanced it to add different things to make it work. You get more equipment cards and more exits, and the car starts back farther. And then you go to the 5th player and you have the trader. Oh man, they really did a great job developing this game. The artwork's amazing, the components are awesome. It is a fantastic game. It's anything I would ever want a hidden movement game to be. So how do I feel this personally? How does it feel? How does it fit with all the other ones? I still personally like Whitechapel the best. But I'm probably going to be in the minority here. I like my deduction games to be pure deduction, and I like to be able to really deduce what things are going on. Now, deduction is an element, and it's a pretty strong element in Specter Ops, but I wouldn't say it's the overwhelming thing in the game, because you have a little bit more of randomness going on. They can move up to 4 spaces, so if you know where he was last round, there's a lot of places he could have gone 4 spaces from there. Add on those special equipment cards, add on the special abilities, things that he's doing that you might not know. He's just turning a card. What did he do? Did he move 6 spaces? What did he do? So there's less pure deduction in this game. Sure, there's deduction used as to where he was, where could he be, what's he doing, he was here, there. It's there, but it's not the overwhelming. I don't think it was designed to be. This was designed to be an experience, and it sure is an experience. It's got a deduction layer, but it also has all those special ability layers, and I think the average gamer is going to love this, and this knocks it out of the park. But personally, I like even more deduction. With Whitechapel, you know, Jack's only moving 1 most of the time, and when you see where he was, you can literally start working your way back and figure out exactly deduction-wise where he was, and it's a lot more focused on the actual deductive elements as opposed to special abilities and moving. Granted, there are times they can move a little bit more, but for the most part. So for me, I still like Whitechapel better for hidden movement because it's purely deductive, but again, I think I'm a minority here. Specter Ops is still awesome. It's still going to be, I think, the gamer's favorite in general hidden movement game. But if you lean towards, I loved pure deduction and I like it as pure as possible, and I like the hidden movement, I think Whitechapel would be your favorite. If you want a quick 30 to 45 minute thing of hidden movement, then Mr. X is probably one you're going to want to pick up. It's older, it's hard to find, but man, they knocked us out of the park. I love it. Still like Whitechapel better, but it is going to be top, and I wouldn't be surprised if this moves way high, way fast up the BGG charts, and I wouldn't be surprised if this is in a lot of people's top 10 games of the year. That's Specter Ops.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.